video. As you can see, I'm not sitting in direct sunlight because the sun just moved and I filmed this intro a little bit later than the application of the makeup, but I hope that's not a problem. Anyway, today we're testing out the new Huda foundation. This one. As you can see, I've already put it on, but I am going to show you the process. And today we're doing a wear test. I'm hoping to put in at least 12 hours, but maybe even a little bit more. I put this foundation on at 8 o'clock, so maybe we can make it till 10 or 12, and wouldn't that be kind of cool? So on the box, this says this is the Faux Filter Luminous Matte Foundation, a full coverage liquid foundation. On the side it says it's life-proof, comedogenic, I don't know what that means, flawless filtered finish. And with life-proof they mean it's waterproof, super long wear, 24 hours, transfer-proof, fade-proof, sweat-proof and humidity-proof. So that's a lot of claims, but instead of the old foundation, which was only matte, which was a true matte and which had a lot of scent, I believe those are the two things they changed about the new formula. But this new foundation is scentless, which it actually is, and it's supposed to have a luminous matte finish. I don't know if you can see, but I'm not wearing any highlighter or anything, and you can see indeed a little bit of a sheen here. I'm also not wearing blush. So I think that is pretty much true. But we'll see at the end of the wear test how I feel about the other claims. So we're going to wear it for as long as possible and see if it irritates or transfers or fades or anything like that. And we'll see how it goes. By the way, I got mine in the shade 120B Vanilla. I have a bit more of a yellow neutral undertone and a little bit lighter. This is okay, it's just a little bit too dark for me. But it is very full coverage, so maybe that's why it's more noticeable. Maybe the color was actually fine. So let's get into the application portion of today's video. So let's give this a try. I'm not going to wear any primer today, but I did do a wear test with a primer. Sorry, it's early. Yesterday and the day before. 2 days ago I used the Le Blanc primer by Chanel and I thought this worked out pretty nice. And yesterday I used the La Base from Lancôme and that worked out very well because it's a smoothing primer and this foundation is a little bit thick. So that worked out very well. Let's see how it works without any primer. I think they put on the cap a little bit too tight, but that's just my opinion. Seems to be a pretty large bottle. Yes, it's actually a little bit more than 1 fluid ounce. Oh. So what I've noticed when I used this yesterday and the day before was that you don't need a lot. But I do like to test out the way it looks when it's completely full coverage. So I'm going in with 2 pumps. Well, maybe 1, 2 half pumps. And I'm just going to spread that on this side of my face, which gets the sunlight directly. So as you can probably see, it is very thick. So I would always recommend a primer with this one, just for the spreadability. Something like the YSL Blur primer, or like I said, the La Base from Lancôme. Those are both smoothing primers, which make the product spread a lot farther. Because now I have to use quite a lot of product. And then it of course gets very full coverage, which is nice, but I think maybe it looks a little bit better when it's a little bit less thick. But I have to say, you don't have to work with it very much. I don't see any streaks or anything. So that's half-half. As you can see, it is very full coverage. I think the color is actually very nice. So I'm happy with that. So all this redness and these post-blemish marks that were also on this side are completely covered. I feel like all the darkness underneath my eyes is actually also covered. You can see on my forehead, that's where I really find it a little bit too thick. So let's do the other half as well. I think my forehead is actually a little bit more dry than the rest of my face. So it could be that's why it's a little bit more thick up there. It spreads a little bit less easy. I mean, it's actually not that bad. Even for a thicker application, it doesn't look that heavy. It doesn't feel that heavy either. It's just that I know that a lot of product went on. So I guess it's not really an issue. I'm comparing it in my head to the new Essence foundation, which was actually cakey. So you actually saw the layer on top of the skin. This does blend into the skin, even if it's a little bit more thick. So I'd say it works very well. Now I feel like this is not quite brightening enough to use as a concealer as well. So I'm going to use a little bit of concealer. I'm not going to use any powder. I believe this dries down pretty much completely. And as you can see, this side is already dry. It does keep a sort of natural glow. So Luminous Matte seems about right. We're going to see how it holds up. I'm going to be right back with my full face of makeup. But I'm not going to use any powder or setting spray. So I'm back, I finished my face of makeup. I had to set my concealer just a little bit because I was using the Too Faced Born This Way and it is a little bit too creamy for me. I personally would have liked to set the foundation as well because it hasn't set completely and I don't know, it doesn't feel... I like it to be a little bit more velvety. I did use a little bit of bronzer and a little bit on my eyes, but no blush, no highlight, no face powder and no setting spray. So this is what it looks like. See, it does have a little bit of a glow. And I believe on camera it actually looks pretty flawless. In real life, this does not look completely perfect, but that's probably because I didn't use a primer and because I didn't blend it out properly. Just pointing it out, it does look a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more uneven on my lip. It's not too bad. No, it's really not that bad. Let's see how this holds up and I'll see you in a couple of hours. It's now 8 o'clock. I'm planning to wear this for 12 hours at least. So let's see you halfway. So I'm doing my first check-in in the same setup as the intro. Let me get closer. As you can see, it looks pretty dry. It still looks a little bit luminous, but I think it looks a little bit thick, like I said in the application portion. And here I had a little bit of an itch and I tried not to touch it, but I touched it just a little bit. And you can see it has fade there, just a little bit. So at this point I'm not really convinced, but yesterday and the day before I also wore it for about 8 hours and it looked flawless the whole time. And I believe it's about, this has two reasons. First of all, I used a primer in both those cases and this was a little bit more of a moisturizing primer. And I think that really helps with the less powdery finish and the more comfortable feeling, because this feels a little bit tight. I have a little bit more dry skin, a little bit normal dry, and I believe a primer really, I believe this foundation really benefits from a primer actually. And the second thing is I think I put on a little bit too much today. So less is more with this foundation, but it only works if you use the proper primer because otherwise it doesn't spread out enough. So that is an issue for me. I hope I can leave this on for as long as I was hoping. So 12 hours or more. It's not completely dried down, by the way, and that's what bothers me. For a foundation that feels so tight, it should be completely matte, or at least completely dry when you touch it. But it isn't. It sort of still transfers on my hands a little bit when I touch here. And also, I was showing it to my boyfriend because of the shade, and he said the shade is fine, which I sort of disagree with. But he also said you put on too much powder. And I did not put on any powder, just a little bit here. But I did not put any powder on my nose or the rest of my face, and he said it looked very powdery. So, like I said, little bits with a good primer, unless you're very oily, of course. I think that's the way to go with this foundation. But let's see how it lasts. I'm back. We have a little change of scenery. I'm now at my parents' house. So I did travel for about an hour with a mask on. And I have to say, this looks quite terrible. It's now 20 past 5. So I've been wearing this for about 9.5 hours. And I have to say, it really wore quite badly, poorly. So when I go up close and in real life, it's okay. Also, the concealer wore very poorly. But I think it's still tacky. And then it also sort of, well, like I keep saying, it feels too thick. Like, it's even a little bit itchy from time to time. So maybe with a different primer it would be better. But I feel like my makeup as a whole, so I didn't even put that much on. But the eyeshadow, the mascara, everything wore pretty bad. So, I think with this foundation you have to use the proper primer, you have to use just a little bit of it, and you really have to set it. At least that's what I think, because it stays a little bit tacky. And then it has a nice finish, but it has a lot of rules and a lot of things you have to do to make it work properly. So I guess I wouldn't really advise to buy this, because the claims that it does have, that it's supposed to last 24 hours and be smudge proof, waterproof, sweat proof, those are really not true. I think it wore, like around my nose, it wore off within 5 hours or something, and it didn't feel very comfortable either. So then you have the worst of both worlds, really. So that would be my advice, you know. Try the Guerlain foundation, that had best of both worlds. That felt very comfortable, was a little bit more matte, but still looked very flawless and very velvety instead of being very powdery. So I would advise to buy that one and not this one, if you have to choose between those two. Anyway, I'm gonna wear this for a couple of more hours, I think, just to see how it holds up. But I'm just going to post a picture right after this. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please remember to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!